Hi there, I am Tom Chick. We are in my dining room on April 23rd, 2020. Tomorrow, according to my calendar, is James Miller's birthday. Who's James Miller, you might wonder? Well, you obviously haven't tried to recruit anyone to help you paint miniatures. James Miller, happy birthday eve. Coming back tomorrow for an actual birthday wish. Today I want to talk to you guys about variants in board games. I want to show you a variant in this game, Renegade, which I've been playing a ton of, and it has a variant which is really cool. Or is it? Let's go over and take a look. For the most part, I am not a fan of variants. My feeling about board game design, actually any game design, is make your design, you tell me how to play, don't just throw a bunch of options in my lap and then ask me to pick which ones I should use. It is your job as the designer, as the game developer, to engineer the experience that I'm going to have. That is not my job. That is why I paid you the 40, 60, 20, whatever dollars. So what'll happen, and a lot of designers certainly understand that, but they can't resist throwing in their variants, their ways of saying, well, I had this idea during the process, and we culled it from the official way to play, but I'm going to put it in the end of the manual as a variant. And this is, I think, almost never a good idea. So I want to show you in Renegade, a game that I really like, an example of how, not to be too blunt about it, but to show you an example of how variants are dumb. Because it's a variant I really want to be a part of Renegade. I would love for this to be a part of how the game plays, but there's simply no reason to play the game this way. There's no incentive to use this variant. And that's part of what variants need, is there needs to be a reason to use the variant. There needs to be some sort of a trade-off. So this variant in Renegade is called de-ice. ICE being, intrusion countermeasure electronics, I think. And the de-ice variant, when you think about it, de-ice spells dice. It adds these dice to the game. And look, they're colored dice. Who doesn't want to use these? Big old pieces of plastic that they had made for Renegade. Of course I want to use these. So in order to explain why these are dumb, and again, apologies for using such a blunt word, but it's kind of the long and the short of it is this is very poorly thought out. Why is it even in here? I need to show you really quickly, and I'm not going to belabor this point, I promise, the basics of how Renegade works. Renegade has 4 colors, or kind of suits, ways of interacting with the board. And specifically, ways of dealing with these little jerks here, which are called sparks. These are the bad guys. Blue, the cards and the little pieces, help movement around the board. Green moves the other pieces around the board. You use blue to move your character. You use green, the pieces and the cards, to move the bits and pieces. Yellow lets you convert these sparks to other colors. It turns your opposition into your help. It's called deception, and it requires having these yellow bits on the board. And finally, red is destruction. It uses these pieces to destroy sparks off of the board. What is unique about red is that unlike the other 3 colors, there's an element of randomness. In order to destroy this, I add the total number of viruses that I have to the total number of icons I'm adding to the command to a die roll. This is just a d6. Then the spark adds the total number of sparks present to its die roll. My final roll must exceed the sparks roll for me to get rid of all of the sparks. So when you play actual regular Renegade, you use this D6, which is just a regular old D6 with a sort of a digital LED display for the numbers instead of pips, 1 through 6. But now let's say that you're reading through the manual and you've learned the game. Oh, and you get to the very end here and you see gameplay variants, and there are all of these options. And this one up here you're specifically curious about because it uses these 3 cool colored dice. There's a copper and a silver and a gold. As you are playing, your opponent, a supermassive computer, works its way up the cycles from copper to silver to gold, and each one is increasingly difficult. The idea being that you've hacked into this computer, and the longer you're there, the more aware of you it is, and the stronger the defenses that it's throwing up against you. So what this de-ice variant says is, in the copper cycle, use this die. In the silver cycle, use this die. And in the gold cycle, use this die when you are doing an infect action, which is where these pieces, the viruses, fight these pieces, the sparks. So rather than the supermassive computer that you're fighting against using this die the whole time, which is just a regular D6, it will use the die based on whichever cycle it's in. So what's the big deal? Is it just a colored die? No, the distribution of numbers changes. It gets higher on successive dice. And you can see it's listed here in the rules what the distribution is and what the average result is going to be. So pretty cool. As the SMC ramps up its defenses, infecting gets more difficult. Now, here's the problem. Okay, so infecting using these red pieces is more difficult, but nothing has changed for the way the blue pieces, the green pieces, and the yellow pieces work. All that this variant does is artificially, sort of arbitrarily, boosts the difficulty of this one mode of interaction in the game. So what it's going to do is actually disincentivize me from using red actions, from taking cards that help red actions, from playing a hacker whose bonus is in the red actions. It simply takes one element of the game without any thought to balance or how the systems interact with each other, and it arbitrarily says, hey, okay, this is more difficult. This will be less effective as the game goes on. The rest of the game, it stays the same. So what this variant encourages you to do is ignore the red color, ignore viruses, ignore destruction commands. And why is that a good idea? What's the point of that? Why have you put these shiny little cool plastic dice in here, and that's the only thing that they do? So it is a variant. I mean, I don't know why you would want to play. I mean, you might as well play a variant where each one of these blue pieces doesn't do anything unless you have 2 of them present. There, that's the equivalent of 1 blue piece. I just made a variant. It's called half blue. Here's another variant I came up with. Every time you put a spark in a partition, add a spark to every single other partition in that server. There, I call that the super spark variant. I mean, I know that developers get attached to ideas. They have cool ideas, and once they get cut from the design, they can't let go of them. Or maybe, you know, they accidentally printed extra pieces. What are they going to do with them? But variants are dumb 99% of the time. I don't mean to just pick on Renegade. Renegade has some really brilliant stuff going on, which is one of the reasons that I'm all the more surprised that such an obviously pointless variant that really changes the gameplay balance is included. Well, why is that in there? So tomorrow, what I want to do is I want to give you an example of a good variant. The problem is I'm going to have to think of one. Surely there's one out there. Let me go through my board games and see if I can come up with a good variant to show you tomorrow. Come on back tomorrow. It's going to be James Miller's birthday, and I'm going to show you a good variant. I will talk to you guys then. Take care of yourselves. Hang in there till Friday. That's tomorrow. I'll see you then. Cheers. Oh, shoot a monkey. Ugh.